Yes, 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 guys. That is the result and that is the performance that we needed more than ever. Obviously, especially with the way the league table is now, it looks a lot better. The fact that we picked up the 3 points, but it's also the fact we kept a clean sheet. And for me, one of the most positive aspects about this performance is the fact that Alisson didn't really have to make any saves. And that shows that we were solid defensively. Finally, we were solid defensively. Yes, Bowen had that major chance towards the end. But other than that, I felt we had control over that game. And I felt that finally we started to look a bit more fluid in the way we played. Obviously, Florian Wirtz, he was my man of the match with Cody Gakpo, obviously, because he got a goal and assist. But Flo really ran the show in everything we did going forward. And he's so unlucky to not have gotten a goal or an assist today. But it just shows he still had a major impact on that game without getting a goal contribution, because even in the build up to the first goal, Isak's first Premier League goal for Liverpool, he played a part in that, So, bro, there's so many positive aspects to take away from that. But for me, the biggest one, and this is, I think, what most Liverpool fans wanted to see beyond the result. Obviously, on paper, we needed to get back to winning ways, and keeping a clean sheet is huge too. But for me, it was the mentality of the players. It was in the duels, were you going to fight in those duels? Were you going to win the 50-50 challenges? Were you going to press? Was your energy, your desire going to be there? For me, that was there today. Even from our attackers, I saw that from everybody tracking back. And it's also such a positive sign that the two players who I think have really been struggling recently, Macca and Ibu Konate, improved significantly today. Macca looked like his best self again. He was always going for those challenges. That's the Macca we know. The South American, fighter came out again, and that's when he's at his best. So he was a lot better, obviously, and that's helped us, no doubt, that the how our midfield looked. But then Ibu Konate looked so solid in there, and he didn't make any mistakes, which is real, major improvement. But I also think, shout out to Joe Gomez. He was in my top 3 performers today as well. Joe Gomez starting for Liverpool Football Club again at right back. He was so solid. I was even surprised at how good he was going forward. He obviously got that goal for Cody Gakpo to make it 2-0 towards the end. But I think him being there at right back, to actually have a proper defender at right back, definitely would have helped Ibu Konate. He looked more confident. And like I said, I think Ibu needs that support, especially in these times. So having someone who's a defender first and foremost in Joe Gomez is going to make a real difference to us keeping clean sheets. And I think that change that Anislot made today was one of the main difference makers in us, like I said, first and foremost, looking solid defensively and us going back to those basics. I think that's what most Liverpool fans wanted to see today. I think most of us, like I said, obviously on the face level, the result, the 3 points were the most important. But the actual way that we were willing to fight as a team, that is so important. And so those changes that he made clearly were successful. Isak didn't have the best of games, but again, he was there in that crucial moment to score that goal, one-time finish, bottom left-hand corner. That's a proper striker's finish, and that's going to do him the world of confidence. So I'm absolutely buzzing for Isak for that. And again, to talk about how much we improved today, I think another factor too is a lot of people going into this game were like, Isak hasn't hit the ground running. Isak's not been that good. He has his haters, his doubters because of the price tag as well. But I keep saying it. We don't create chances for Alexander Isak. We haven't been creating chances for Alexander Isak. And that's the main difference between the Isak that we see this season and, for example, at Newcastle last season, where he was fed, the wingers would feed him with chances constantly. And the system was kind of built around him to score. So obviously it's going to be a hard adjustment for him because it's not at all the way we've been playing this season. But look at what happens today. When we look to actually try to create chances, he could have had 2 goals. He could have had 2 to 3 goals. In the first half, he had that chance that was just outside the box. He put it over. Then there was another chance that he had. So he had a few chances in this game. And of course, this is the game he scores his first Premier League goal in, because we actually were creating chances for him. And that makes a big difference. Of course it does. So I'm just absolutely buzzing because there are so many major positives to take from it. But the reason I don't want to overreact either is because ultimately, what is most important after a result like that? What it actually means in terms of consistency. like I said, I think what we're missing right now the most is confidence. This game will give us the world of confidence, which is why it is such an important win, and especially keeping that clean sheet. But like I said, if we then lose to Sunderland on Wednesday, then obviously it won't matter as much. Now we need to be consistent. But for me, the performance more than the result makes me a lot more optimistic that we can come away with the 3 points at Anfield against Sunderland. Why? Because we kept that clean sheet, because we were defensively solid, and that needs to be our base. That needs to be our base. And then the likes of Flo, who absolutely shined today, needs to start obviously against Sunderland because he showed he was a real difference maker in there. Absolute difference maker. Same with Joe Gomez. Keep him in the team. Those were the changes. Keep them in the team. They made a huge difference in my opinion today. In Flo on the attacking side of things, Joe Gomez on the defensive side of things. And that's why I think we were able to score and we were also able to keep a clean sheet. Yes, West Ham weren't at their best today. There's no doubt about that. But no game in the Premier League is ever easy. It's not. So we have to take confidence from that. And like I said, I don't want to overreact too much. But also right now, we take the positives where we can because of the run that we were on before. You know what I mean? So let me know. By the way, in the comments, who was your man of the match? Was it, I think that if I could say top 3 performers, I would say Joe Gomez for the reasons I said before. I would say Florian Wirtz for the absolute magic he showed on that pitch. And then Cody Gakpo because he got the goal and assist. Boy, did he shut up his doubters today, by the way. The amount of people that didn't want him to start today. And he was involved in both goals, obviously. You know, the way he took that second goal, especially. The first one, classic wingers kind of instinct to just put that in a dangerous place in the box. That's what he did for Isak for that goal. And then the second one, really, really good goal. The way it was a powerful cross from Gomez. He just controlled it with his chest, brought it down, finished it calm, cool in front of goal. And that finished off the game when it was a bit, we were a bit nervous at that stage. So, bro, a lot of positives to take away, no doubt about it. And you look at that bench, and it's just such a strong bench. But again, when something's working, I wouldn't make too many changes. I really wouldn't. Even Kirkez, bro, played well today. Genuinely. He was battling out there, giving it absolutely everything, and didn't make mistakes, which is what, unfortunately, has let Slot and this side down time and time again in this, terrible run of form we've just been through. I think a lot of it, too, has been down to just pure defensive mistakes. And the two in our defense that I looked at today that, you would go into it being a bit worried are Ibu Konate and Milos Kerkez. They were both solid. And like I said, purely the fact that they didn't make those defensive mistakes obviously makes a big difference. But like I said, I think the reason they were able to also be more confident is, like I said, I think Macca improved drastically, and him kind of having that presence in the midfield would have shielded that defense a bit more, right? Because he's one of the two holding mids. And then for that right-hand side where Ibu is, Joe Gomez would have made a massive difference. So, yeah, these changes really helped. But like I said, I'm a very positive fan, so I don't want to overreact too, because like I said, imagine we then lose to Sunderland. In hindsight, this game wouldn't mean as much. But like I said, you have to take the positives where you can, given the crisis situation we're in. And we move forward from here. But then you talk about what this means, for Arne Slot. I do think it's significant because, like I said, after the Forest loss and the PSV loss, a lot of us looked at this Liverpool team, and I think what we were more worried than anything almost than kind of the results themselves, which, yes, were very bad. It's like the heads dropping. It's the mentality that we saw from them as if they'd given up. And that for me was, I said it pre-match, and for me they delivered in that aspect as well, is I was worried that these players didn't want to play for this manager anymore. I was worried that could be something. And yes, again, I'm not going to judge based off of just one game. Now they have to stay consistent and hopefully, win these next two, because then we could genuinely be in second or third place if we win the next two. That's how crazy this league is right now. Or maybe third, but still, that's a significantly different feeling than how we felt last week, or at least after the Forest game. But yeah, for me, it was the actual mentality of the players, and what they showed today tells me that they want to fight for this manager. And that for me was the biggest question mark I had ahead of this game. Were they going to fight on that football pitch and want it more than West Ham? Which in previous games, it felt like the opposition wanted it more than us. That cannot be said about today. We absolutely wanted it more. And all of our attackers as well. And, this is what tells me that maybe Mohamed Salah isn't going to start in the next game. And it's crazy to see that he wasn't even used as a sub today. That's a shock. That tells you it's a bit of an end of an era. Not to overreact, but I think one of the things that worked really well today is also how all of our attackers track back. Even Florian Wirtz, who's an absolute magician and not that physical, right, of a presence. He's not that tall, he's not that physical, all these things. He was tracking back every time, and this is what I mean. I think what we're seeing now is we can't get outfought. So even if you're an attacker, if you're not going to track back every single time, if you're not going to go in for those 50-50 challenges, then you can't be starting for the club right now, because the Premier League is so competitive this season. And so, like I said, I think for those reasons, the changes Slot made were very much so the difference makers. But for me, it was a change in mentality. It was the way we fought on that football pitch. That's what won us the game. Because, like I said, then you can look at all the other aspects to it. But yeah, we'll have to see now. Let me know how you're feeling after that one. Like I said, I don't want to overreact too much, because we need now to keep this going against Sunderland midweek and then against Leeds next weekend. But this is still a really good win. This is a confidence we need to take and move forward with, because obviously we were very low on confidence before. So up the Reds. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you as always for your support. You'll never walk alone. Ciao, guys.